There is one number that can tell you whether a subscription business would keep growing even if it never signed up another new customer, and it is the number serious investors reach for first. It is called net revenue retention, and most small founders either have never heard of it or badly misunderstand it. Today, I want to explain what net revenue retention actually is, how to calculate it from your own numbers, why crossing a certain line means your existing customers are a growth engine on their own, and where the number can quietly mislead you. I track this on every recurring revenue business I run because it cuts through a lot of noise. New signups can paper over a leaky product for a long time, but net revenue retention looks only at the customers you already have and asks whether they, as a group, are worth more or less to you than they were a year ago. That is a brutally honest question, and the answer tells you something acquisition numbers never can. So let me unpack it slowly because the definition trips up a lot of people. Shummi Clearance for NWPC, Net revenue retention measures how the revenue from your existing customers changes over a period, usually a year, ignoring any brand new customers entirely. You take a group of customers, look at what they paid you at the start, then look at what that same group pays you at the end, after accounting for cancellations, downgrades, and any upgrades or expansion. The result is expressed as a percentage. It answers one question. Without adding a single new customer, is the revenue from the people I already have growing, shrinking, or holding steady? The 100% line. The magic line is 100%. If your net revenue retention is exactly 100%, the revenue from your existing base is flat. The upgrades exactly cancel the losses. Below 100, your existing customers are shrinking as a revenue source, and you must acquire new ones just to stand still. Above 100, and this is the powerful case, your existing customers are growing on their own, paying you more over time even after some leave. That means you would grow with zero new signups, which is a remarkable position to be in. Why crossing 100 is special? Net revenue retention above 100% is special because it means growth compounds from within. The expansion from customers upgrading, buying more, or moving to higher tiers more than replaces everything lost to cancellations and downgrades. Your revenue base is not a leaky bucket you have to keep refilling. It is a bucket that fills itself a little more each period. Layer new customer acquisition on top of that, and growth accelerates rather than just continuing. This is why investors prize it, because a business over 100 has a fundamentally healthier engine than one relying entirely on new sales. The components underneath, to really understand the number, break it into its moving parts. You start with the base revenue from your existing group. You subtract lost revenue from customers who canceled entirely, that is your churn. You subtract reduced revenue from customers who downgraded or bought less, that is contraction. And you add revenue from customers who upgraded, expanded, or bought more, that is expansion. Net revenue retention is what you get when all of those are combined. Expansion is the hero, and it is the piece small businesses most often forget they can even influence. A worked example, let me use round numbers. Say a group of customers paid you $100,000 last year. Over the year, cancellations cost you $15,000 and downgrades cost another $5,000, so you lost $20,000. But upgrades and expansions from the customers who stayed added $30,000. So this year, that same group pays you $110,000. Your net revenue retention is 110%. The same customers, no new ones, and yet 10% more revenue because expansion outran the losses. That is the engine working in your favor. Gross versus net retention. It helps to know its stricter cousin, gross revenue retention. Gross retention counts only the losses, churn and contraction, and never lets expansion push it above 100%. So gross retention shows you how leaky the bucket is, while net retention shows the bucket after refilling from expansion. Looking at both is revealing. A business can have a beautiful net retention propped up by a few big expansions, while gross retention quietly shows heavy churn underneath. The gap between the two tells you how much you are relying on expansion to hide losses. Why expansion is the lever for most small businesses. The fastest route to healthy net revenue retention is not plugging every leak, but growing the customers who stay. That means giving existing customers reasons to pay you more over time, higher tiers, more seats, add-ons, complementary products. It is usually far cheaper to expand a happy existing customer than to acquire a brand new one, because they already trust you. So if your net retention is stuck near or below 100, the question is not only how do I stop churn, it is how do I help my best customers naturally grow their spending. The segmentation it enables, net revenue retention becomes even more useful, sliced by customer type. Your larger customers might expand steadily, while your smallest ones churn heavily, giving very different retention profiles that the blended number hides. Knowing this reshapes strategy because it tells you which kind of customer actually compounds and which quietly drains. A business often discovers that one segment is carrying the whole net retention number while another is a net loss. That insight, invisible in the blended figure, can redirect who you target and who you gently let go. Why it flatters and misleads. Now the cautions, because this number has a dark side. Net revenue retention can look wonderful while your customer count is actually falling if a handful of big customers expand enough to mask many small ones leaving. It measures revenue, not people, so it can hide a shrinking, concentrating base behind a healthy percentage. A business increasingly dependent on a few expanding whales is fragile, and net retention alone will not warn you. Always read it beside your raw customer count, or you can celebrate a number that is quietly describing growing concentration risk. The concentration risk, that concentration is worth its own moment. If your lovely net retention rests on 2 or 3 customers who keep expanding, you do not have a growth engine, you have a dependency. Lose one of those customers and the number collapses. The healthiest net revenue retention is broad, driven by many customers, each expanding a little, not a few expanding enormously. So when the number looks great, ask where it is coming from. A percentage built on a wide base is real strength, and one built on a few accounts is a risk wearing the costume of strength. Diam firstly job. Net revenue retention is built for recurring revenue businesses, subscriptions, and the like, where the same customers pay repeatedly and can expand. If you run a one-off purchase shop, the concept bends awkwardly, though a cousin idea whether repeat customers spend more over time still applies. Do not force the metric onto a business it was not designed for just because investors like it. Use it where recurring revenue makes it meaningful, and use plainer repeat purchase measures where it does not. What it cannot tell you. The honest limit. Net revenue retention is a powerful summary, but it is one number, and it says nothing about why customers expand or leave, nothing about profitability, and nothing about the customers you have yet to win. A great number can hide concentration risk, and a poor one can understate a business fixing its churn. Treat it as a high-level health check to read alongside customer count and gross retention, never as a single verdict, and certainly never as a promise about future growth or a substitute for judgment. Why investors love it. It helps to understand why this number carries so much weight with investors, because it reveals what they fear. A business that must run harder every year just to replace lost revenue is fragile, and one whose existing customers grow on their own is durable. Net revenue retention separates those two at a glance, which is why it often matters more to an investor than raw growth. High growth funded entirely by ever-rising acquisition spend is far less impressive than steady growth compounding from a base that expands itself. The number quietly exposes which of the two you actually are. Matansi identifies. Ilimiti beting company to benefit from this, and starting early pays off. Even with a modest base, watching how your existing customers' revenue changes year over year tells you whether your product creates expanding value or slowly leaks it. Catching a below 100 trend while you are small gives you time to fix the underlying churn or add expansion paths before it calcifies into the shape of your business. The earlier you see the leak, the cheaper it is to patch, and the habit of measuring it is worth building long before investors ever ask. Build real expansion paths. If you want healthy net revenue retention, you have to give customers genuine ways to spend more as they get more value, and that is a product decision, not a pricing trick. Tiers that unlock real additional benefit, add-ons people actually want, usage that naturally grows with their own success. The expansion has to feel like fair value received, not a squeeze, or it drives the very churn it was meant to offset. The businesses with the best net retention are usually the ones where a customer growing means the customer genuinely needs more of what you offer. The manufacturer expansion. The flip side, and a real temptation, is manufacturing expansion in ways that damage the relationship, forcing customers onto higher tiers, burying essential features behind upgrades, or nickel and diming can lift the number for a quarter and poison your retention underneath. Net revenue retention bought by annoying your customers is borrowed and it comes due as churn later. The honest version grows because customers succeed and want more, and that distinction between expansion earned and expansion extracted is the difference between a number that predicts durability and one that hides decay. The fuller version, with the component breakdown and the gross versus net comparison worked through, lives at dataresearchanalysiscollection.com in plain English. I keep it honest there for the same reason I am careful here, because net revenue retention is exactly the kind of impressive number that can flatter a fragile business. Calculate it from your own cohort, read it beside your customer count, and watch whether your expansion is broad or dangerously concentrated, and it becomes one of the truest reads on your business you own. So to recap, net revenue retention tracks how revenue from your existing customers changes over a year, ignoring new ones, and crossing 100% means your current base grows on its own through expansion outrunning churn and contraction. Break it into its parts. Lean on expansion as the cheapest lever and compare it with gross retention to see how leaky the bucket really is. Always read it beside your customer count because it can hide a shrinking, concentrating base. Next time I want to walk through building a one-person business dashboard, you will actually read. I will see you in the next one.